I love it very much.
It really is.
Just put the pen down. Where's my pen? What's the population of Orlando?
Oh, I think that's a really good question. The city of
I have it
Orlando.
printed. I have it printed out. 2.5 million or something.
Well, the metro region is
Yeah.
about 2.5 million. The city of Orlando is like 250. But
Good
the
to know.
metro region is like
Anyone else I
2.4
should
or
be
something like that. Miranda, maybe before we start, people can introduce themselves. You don't really need that on tape, or do you want it on tape?
Everybody in the crowd? Do you want to do that, or do you want to save it for when they introduce themselves if they want to say
I'd like to know ahead of time who everybody else, because we've got a few minutes to spare, so why don't we just ask them to say who they are?
I love it.
Okay,
Okay.
that'd be fun for us.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Urban ReThink. My name is Brendan O'Connor, and I'm the programming coordinator here at Urban ReThink. So thank you so much for coming. For those of you who haven't been here before, Urban ReThink is a shared working space during the day. And that means we are a space for people who don't have a traditional office. They can come here, work next to people they wouldn't otherwise get in contact with, and give them a chance to cooperate or collaborate and maybe come up with something that they never would have done in the isolation of their own office or home. And then at night, we get to do exciting free cultural events like this. So thank you again for being here. I'm very honored to have everybody here on the panel. But actually, we just had a request from the panel. We'd love to hear who some of you are. Since this is about helping artists and cultural people in Central Florida, would everybody feel comfortable? Maybe we could start over here with our friend in green and just say who you are and maybe what you do, and then maybe that'll help tailor the conversation with our questions and prompts to the panel, and we can maybe address some specific questions that you might have. Thank you.
My name is Flora. I'm an artist, and I'm wanting to tip my life from being a 9-to-5 worker with art on the side to being a artist with some other stuff on the side instead. So that's what I'm tipping towards. That's why I'm here. I'm here and I'm supporting Laura in this. I'm a graphic artist, and I should love to do that too. Hi, my name is Mary. I'm an entertainer at Walt Disney World, and I am an entertainer outside of Walt Disney World. And I did a series here recently. Last Wednesday this month, it's my talk show. And that's my
It's called Converse, a spontaneous talk show. And the next one's going to be amazing, so keep your eyes open.
I'm Jill, and I'm a graphic designer. I work for myself, and I also do comedy on the side. And I'm here to just see what we're going to do tonight. I'm Sandy Dominguez. I have a gallery and I manage a studio and I'm an art educator. I teach 6th grade and I'm a past board member of the Maitland Art Center for 5 years.
Where's your gallery?
Maitland
Well, that's great. And there's Thomas Thorsbecken in the back.
And an artist.
Right, analog artist in a digital world. Thanks for coming. So tonight is the very first chapter in our artist survival guide. That's something that we came up with. It's a new series here that we're launching at Urban ReThink. And the idea is to give those survival lessons to people who maybe did just get a BFA and then you didn't learn how to actually put that into effect. So this first chapter, and I call it a chapter because at the end of the year's worth of programming, we will sum up all of the lessons that we have from tonight. We're actually recording. And then we'll transcribe it and put it into a book, and we're publishing it through Borough Press, which is one of our sister organizations under the Urban Think Foundation umbrella. So pretty exciting, and then we'll give that away to the artist community. We'll share all these lessons, so those of us who couldn't make it tonight will be able to read it later. So make sure that your questions later on are really smart and intelligent sounding. That's it. We'll just launch into it. Again, I'm Brendan O'Connor, and I'm also an artist, so I'm a little bit selfish because I'm setting this up to learn lessons that I want to learn too, like how do you do your taxes and how do you approach a gallery owner, things like that. So we'll open it up to our panel and we'll get them to introduce themselves and their organization that they work with, and we'll just go one by one, and maybe we'll start with my friend down on the end. And if you, let's just take, and we'll speak. We have to be very careful to speak into the microphone so I can transcribe every word that's shared.
I'm Jessica Bryce Young. I'm the Arts and Culture Editor at Orlando Weekly, which is the alternative news weekly here in town. If you're not already a reader, you should be. I think that about covers it. It's really nice to know who all of you are, though, I have to say. That's a new wrinkle. Good
Jessica,
one.
how long have you been with Orlando Weekly?
I've been with the Weekly for about 8 years.
8 years.
But I've only been Arts and Culture Editor for about 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
My name is Devin Dominguez. I'm the Director of Development at the Art and History Museums, Maitland, and it's nice to see so many familiar faces on the stage and in the crowd. For those of you who don't know, the Art and History Museums, Maitland, are it's an umbrella institution that operates 5 museums in the city of Maitland. So 4 of our museums are historical in nature, and we operate the Maitland Art Center, which is the largest of our 5, and what we'll primarily be talking about tonight, I assume.
I'm Flora Maria Garcia. I'm the CEO of the United Arts of Central Florida, so we cover 4 counties, and I'm fairly new. I've been in town for about a year, coming out of Atlanta, but having worked in a lot of other urban communities, Houston being probably the biggest artist cultural center, and I come from a visual arts background. I started out as an artist and was married to an individual artist for many, many years who still makes his living as a painter, and we started artist survival workshops in Houston in the early 80s, and I think they're really, really important to do. So I'm really happy to be part of this panel.
And we're happy you are too. Well, I could take up the whole time introducing myself, but I won't do that because I am a woman of many titles, but in my heart, I'm an artist. My mother was an artist. I was a corporate executive. I ran entertainment venues, theaters, arenas, stadiums from Washington, D.C. to Lakeland, Florida. I moved to Orlando in 1987 to be the chairman of the Ticketmaster Corporation, and I was also a full-time artist and a full-time corporate executive. I've lived in this community for 25 years and have supported and nurtured and led by their hands and pushed and pulled and spoken and been quiet and been loud and been soft. But the arts are alive and well in Orlando, Florida. I'm the chairman of the Downtown Arts District. I'm a full-time contemporary mixed media artist. I am the official ambassador of love for the city of Orlando, which in short term means bringing community together to thrive, survive, and sustain, and bring us all together through arts and culture. And I show up. And I'm thankful you all are here, and I will never give up. I love the arts. I am the arts. I am an artist. I'm proud of it. It will save our communities. It will enrich our communities. It will save our educational system. It will grow the world to be a better place to live and to be. And I'm thankful for all of this, and I'm happy to participate. And I love you all very much.
I'm Terry Olsen, and I've been in Orlando 30 years. And I like to call myself Orange County's chief arts instigator. Work for Orange County government, or sometimes I just call myself a government bureaucrat. What else? Yeah,
You show up too.
I do show up. All right.
Wonderful. So that's great. Aren't you honored to be near them? Right, and breathing in their creative energy. I think we'll just launch right into it. Flora, I'd love to hear. I know you've been here for a year, versus 30, or I'm sure the collective years are. Right. I don't want to. I'm not pointing fingers, but there's a lot of years on this panel. But given your job, I think the Sentinels did an article on you saying that they quoted you say that you've led a whirlwind of change in your first year, and then coming in as an outsider in the year, and then being put in a leadership position like that. What were some of the first things that you noticed about the Orlando art scene?
Well, remember that these survival workshops really came out of the 3 conversations that we had with the artist community when I first got here. And it really, the nascent part of it was to find out where you all were coming from and what you wanted to know and what your issues were and what you needed here. Because every artist community is different and everybody's at a different level. And so very clearly, it became evident that the artist community here needed some strong technical assistance, information about what was available to them and how they could evolve in their professional careers. So, Brandon, I applaud you for having pursued the survival workshops, because that to me is really basic and really important to let artists know what resources are here. So I've worked in Houston, I've worked in St. Louis, I've worked in Fort Worth, Texas, and Atlanta. All of those communities had very, very strong artist community. And just coming from an artist perspective myself, I just knew that, I was educated in the arts and in the visual arts, but the only options that I had when I was in school was either to teach or to try to be a professional artist. But the institutions that I went to didn't prepare me at all for being a professional artist. And so that's where the concept of these technical assistance workshops from artists came from. And I think it's really important to have those conversations, even though the artist survival workshops in 1983 were really different than the artist survival workshops of this year. Everything's become much more technologically oriented, but the issues are still the same. How can you make a living as an individual artist, and what are the things that you need to be aware of, and what kinds of things does the community need to do to really honor and respect the work that you do? I think that's really important, because without individual artists, there would be no arts community. And I think it's important for us to remember that. So what I've found getting here is that there are a lot of basic things that individual artists in the cultural sector need to know that other places have already done. So it doesn't really matter. It's a matter of us starting at where you need to start to get going in developing your career. I think it's a hugely creative community. It's really exciting to have the theme parks here, but I think also a lot of times the creative sector feels a little insecure because you're in the shadow of the theme parks. But I also am really excited about all the talent that exists here and the possibilities. And so what we want to do, we actually created a grants program at United Arts that focuses on artist projects and artists working with communities. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I just wanted you to know that we're one of the few funding agencies that actually funds individual artists. And I believe that, and I want to maintain that, and I want to honor that, because I think the best investment a funding organization that supports the arts could make is in supporting the individual artist, because that's the beginning of everything.
Oh, and that's wonderful. And part of going from that, in that actual same article, I think you were also quoted as saying you were a little surprised at some of the agencies being so dependent on grants, on your specific grants from United Arts. I'm wondering if you think that's something that sets Orlando artists apart.
What's interesting is the Community Foundation did an assessment, a snapshot of all of the financial data of cultural organizations, and they looked at where the funding comes from. And what's really unusual and interesting in the Orlando area is that usually individual giving is a much greater percentage of the total giving pie of an organization's funding budget. And what's happening here is that actually I think government, public sector support is a little bit higher than individual giving. So public sector support, and that is very unusual. Government support is usually a far smaller percentage of a total operating budget. So what we've got to do is we've got to increase the individual support sector and get more people to invest in the arts than just the public sector. And I think we can do that. I think what's happened is that there's been not a whole lot of effort made to reach the individual sector in investing in this community. And it's discussions that I'm having in lots of other places. The Central Florida Partnership talking about having civic engagement. What I keep hearing is that this is such a transient community that people don't invest in this community. They're investing elsewhere. They think they live elsewhere, they belong elsewhere. They don't consider Orlando their home, and therefore they give money to places where they think they're from, where they were born or whatever. And I think that's a real problem in this community. But I think it's about having some kind of effort where we talk about you are living here now, and whether you're here for a few years or longer than that, you really need to invest in your community, and you need to invest in the creative sector that lives here.
I'd love to hear, Terry, since you're our public sector rep, do you have anything to add to that? Is that something that you see? Do you feel a lot of pressure as a public representative to be supporting the arts more than the private sector? Do you feel they pass the buck a little bit?
Well, let me see that it's not that our private or our public sector support is so large, it's that the individual support is so small. So Orange County invests about total $4 per citizen in the arts.
Per year?
Yeah, per capita. So there's about 1.2 million people. It's a little over $4 million that we invest each year. But other communities around the state and the nation can be much higher than that, as much as $10 to $12 per person. So that the problem is not too much. The problem is not enough of the private.
Right. But I think also, as you all know, that funding over the last 30 years has really shifted, where public agencies were originally funding individual artists. You look at the National Endowment for the Arts, which about 30 years got into a lot of controversy because of funding some very controversial projects by individual artists, and they stopped doing that. And so there was a wave that happened across the country when the National Endowment stopped funding individual artists because of the controversy. Everybody else who was funding individual artists, public agencies or public-private agencies like United Arts, sort of fell back and became more conservative and stopped funding the individual artists. And I'm really, really happy that United Arts has continued to fund individual artists and really continue to invest in that arena, and that it has not shied away from funding artists.
Can I just add? Well, go ahead, and then I want to add something to that.
One recent advancement in the private investment in the arts community for individual artists, we formed the Awesome Foundation, Orlando chapter, which each month gives $1,000 away to anybody, to whoever writes the most awesome one-page. And we've given one away, and that went to Elizabeth, who's sitting right here, for her panorama project, which she places disposable cameras around with instructions like take a week and document your life and then deposit the camera, and then she does a show of different perspectives of the city. So that's available. Just go to awesomefoundation.org. Fill out a one-page application about your project that will create more awesomeness in the universe. And then 10 individuals who give $100 a month get together and decide which one they like best. And you can check the Orlando chapter. And there's about 67 around the world, but we have one too.
I applied, and I didn't get it. Sorry, Elizabeth. I'll pass it, Donna. Yeah.
Okay.
Next one.
On that particular note, and I'll just be very brief with my statement, which I'm not usually, but I will be, that this is about survival. And I will tell you that no is just the beginning. Go back again and again and again and ask. You have friends, you have family, you have organizations, you have your church, you have your place of where you work. You're trying to put together a project. So don't be limited by your shyness. Please ask in the name of the arts. No really is just the beginning. Your family, your friends, your relatives, your neighbors, they can say no. Ask the next person. We have millions of people that live here in Orlando. Millions of people. So you want to do an event, get a group together, each one contributes a certain amount. I find that as we continue to come together as community and we continue to come together as artists, nothing will stop us if we continue to do it.
Donna,
and we thank Flora Maria for the new vision and the new outlook and the new focus on the individual artists so we can continue these programs.
I'd love to hear, while you have the microphone, since you've been downtown and actually helped formulate the Downtown Arts District, I'd love to hear from you firsthand how you think the arts has changed, or the art atmosphere has changed since you've been here.
Well, 25 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot downtown, okay? There was brick...
7-week shops.
7 weeks. And there was boarded up. We were a blighted community. We had a little bit on Church Street, but artists were meeting. Terry Hummel and his group were meeting over at Stardust Cafe over on Corinne and Winter Park Road, and they had a vision about the Orlando Visual Artists League. That's, 15, 16 years ago. It takes people that are willing to do the work. Frankie with Apartment E. Patrick with all of his ideas, each individual artist with all of their ideas, and coming together as a group, because as a group, we're strong. We have ideas. We can formulate. We will survive. So from those meetings with Terry Hummel, or Sir Terrence, as he is known now, and he writes the arts column for the Orlando Sentinel and tells us about all the amazing things that we have going on here, approached the city, went down there as a volunteer and said, I need space for artists. And they gave us a space underneath of a bar, a space of bare concrete and dirty floors and dirty walls. And the artists brought shovels and garbage bags, and we wore our, overalls, and we cleaned it up, and we made 12 artist studios, working artist studios there. We started a little function called Third Thursday. Our first one had 25 people. The second one had 50. Last Third Thursday, we had 2,500 people. We were exhibiting over 500 pieces of art from over 200 artists. We have the City Arts Factory, which is over 8,000 square feet of arts and entertainment space. Sat Comedy Lab is upstairs. Over 70,000 people go through that venue in 1 year. In another month, we're opening Barney's Coffee Kitchen, which is a concept in this community coffee, growing coffee, giving jobs to people all around the world. Part of the caveat of the lease of the space in City Arts Factory was art space to exhibit art. We used to lease out the space to galleries. We wanted art galleries. We wanted space for people to have art galleries. Lisa Kuat had the Q Gallery. She spent her life savings operating a gallery. That was her lifelong dream. We had other artists come and try to have galleries. Couldn't work. So we sat down as a group and said, what can work? An artist can't pay $2,000 a month, but can they pay $100 a month to exhibit? So now we have, in the O Gallery, we have 8 individual artist spaces. In the Community Gallery, which we have sponsored by Ford Keeney and Jennifer Quigley, we can exhibit 1 artist or 30 artists. It's $500 for an entire month. The Orlando Magic fund us for the Orlando Magic Gallery. Sometimes it's 1 artist, sometimes it's 10 artists. We have the Star Gallery. We work with not-for-profits. We do grant space on an individual basis based on opportunities that the artists present. We have many artists that use their grants from United Arts to present events. So when you look at where we were and where we are and where we continue to go, it's about each person. If no one knew that we were having the events, thank you Orlando Weekly, and thank you Orlando Sentinel, and thank you for the bloggers and for the Facebookers and for the individual artists and for people who love and support the arts. Terry Olsen, thank you for the people that come out, because it's the people that make the difference. But we can do it, and we will continue to do it. Not easy, very difficult. Jeff Schonkweiler with the Artist Registry, 3,000 artists on the Artist Registry. He'll be holding his next event at City Arts Factory. Without the support of certain individuals that say, we'll pay the rent for you, because artists can't afford to pay the rent. But we ask, and we find, and we execute. So we're going to keep going. We're not going to stop. Orlando is a city of the world, and we have amazing things going on here. I wish this room had 2,000 people in it tonight. But through the, as you pointed out, Flora Maria, through the advancement of technology, we'll reach many more than 2,000.
We're also live streaming right now, speaking of technology.
That's the great thing, is that you just show up, you do it, know it's just the beginning, and we can, and we will continue to, as long as we choose that.
Congratulations on the recent acquisition of the Avalon Gallery, Pat Green.
Yes.
Holler at you.
Thank you for bringing that up. It's an expansion of the, our mission is to expand and grow the arts downtown, and we have done that in many ways, and we'll come back to that.
Yeah, I'd actually, speaking of the expansion into other galleries, I'd love to hear from Devin about A&H, the Art and History Museums, and their current expansion. And actually, you have a lot of really interesting programs that are hands-on with the artists. I'll let you expand if you would.
We do. I'm going to take just a step back and just share the history of the Maitland Arts Center. It was founded in 1937 by an artist named Andre Smith, and he came to Maitland and looked at Lake Sibilia and declared it the most beautiful place he'd ever seen, and decided that that's where he wanted to create his vision for an artist colony. And so he started construction in 1937 and built through 1942, and he designed his architecture in a style known as Mayan Revival, or fantasy architecture, and we are actually one of the last examples in the United States of this architecture, and we are the only example left. in the Southeast. And so we kind of serve two purposes while we're talking about the expansion. And one is to honor the architectural history of the institution, as well as Andre's vision for the research studio as a place for artists to live and work, collaborate, experiment, and really take some time to hone their skill and to interact with other artists so that they could be the best that they were hoping to be. And so I believe the expansion you're talking about is on our Germain Marble building, which is very exciting. It's partially funded by Orange County through their tourist development tax funding for cultural facilities. And the Germain Marble building is probably the first building that you'll see when you head down Packwood Avenue to our campus. It's right now it serves as a multi-purpose room that is good for rentals. We hold a lot of our events there, but it doesn't really honor the space in the same way that Andre had envisioned. And so what we've done is asked a local architect to help us merge that building with the rest of the campus to make it a new exhibition space. And so we will be renovating it to make it the best possible safe environment for the artwork and hold our permanent collection of Andre Smith's work in there. It will also become a beautiful event space that will merge the indoors with the outdoors so that you can see the beautiful architecture while you're inside the building and be inspired by it just as much as you would be outdoors and get a little bit of air conditioning while you're in there. So.
But you also have a program like an artist critique and conversation series. Is that right?
We do. Our mission for the Maitland Arts Center is to honor Andre Smith's legacy, and one of the ways that we do that is through a bi-monthly program called Artist Critique and Conversation. And we developed that program as a result of artists coming to us and asking just the questions that you're asking today. How do I become a professional artist, a full-time professional artist? And so we assemble a panel of not only professional artists who work full-time as artists, but also critics, gallerists, people who work in the fine art field that aren't just exclusively artists. We also have professors that come and speak, and they look at your artwork and they give you feedback on the elements of design and what you're trying to accomplish with it, but they also address questions of where's the best place to sell this? How do I approach someone to get this into a gallery, and really tackle those questions, not just, we don't really talk about taxes, but we talk about the actual work itself, and then how do you elevate yourself in the community to get that art out there, to sell it, to show it.
And that actually is kind of a great segue for you, my friend, Miss JBY on the corner. We don't really have any critiques per se, like a critic paid by a publication, but you've become a great source for a publication, to people to look at, to see what's happening in the art scene.
Well, I think the paper, obviously, we serve the function of listing a lot of events, as many events as we can fit in print, and, on the internet, as many as we get. But I do write critical reviews. Seth writes critical reviews. This is more of a visual arts thing, and he's more of our performing arts person, but I have a lot of freelancers. We do write critical reviews of art around town, so there is some of that out there.
And we had a great review from you for the Cardboard Art Festival. So
yes, that's true.
But that's something that we hear often from the art public, is that they're not getting enough critiques. Do you have anything to say about that? Or
I think that, as a weekly, that's 52 issues a year. I do have a lot of wonderful freelancers, but I only have so much space in print and time that I can assign, and money, because all of our writers are paid, that I can assign and edit and write. But it's out there, and as Donna pointed out, there are a lot of bloggers who are, doing some sophisticated critiques, I think, not just cheerleading, and there's a difference between those two things.
Exactly,
yeah.
Right. So I apologize.
So in Atlanta, when the newspaper fired all the critics, all at the same time, because they say, and every community that I've lived in dealt with newspapers, they say that art criticism doesn't sell paper, and their job is to sell papers. And so the critics were all fired. And so my agency pulled together people who were writing about art, including the fired critics, and we talked about what can we do as a community that cares about art criticism and art writing, and how can we come together and take it upon ourselves to deal with the lack of art criticism and art writing that's going on. And so out of that, the visual arts critic and the music critic who had been terminated by the newspaper decided that they were going to start an electronic site on art criticism. And it started out with visual arts and music. They eventually became a nonprofit. They had a subscription base, became a nonprofit, and were funded by different entities. And then they ended up having a film critic, a literary critic, a dance critic, and I can't remember what else, but it's Atlanta. It's Atlanta Arts Critic ATL. And it's actually in the span of a short period of time, we had this electronic network where people were writing art criticism and having dialogue about what was going on in Atlanta in the arts. And it was really the writing community that decided that this was important and they were going to take it upon themselves to do. It did not compete with a newspaper. It was just more is more. And what I want to encourage the artist community to do is take ownership of their own plight and their own development. So if you see that there's a gap, do something. Because if you wait around and wait for somebody else to do it for you, it may never happen. So this, and there were a couple of other sites that we looked at as models. Glass Tire in Houston has been a very successful electronic site for art criticism. But eventually, over time, this thing worked. And so, but it was an initiative that was very grassroots, that was about the need to have more critical dialogue in a community where a lot was happening and the newspapers weren't covering it. But it was our artist community and our writers community that took the gauntlet and did something about it and made it work.
Jessica, as somebody who goes out and covers art events weekly, is there something that you see regularly, or is there a pattern that you're seeing in local art events or artwork that you want to shake into people's brains to maybe do better or maybe reward them for?
I think I'm seeing more time-based art, if I can use that phrase without offending anyone. I'm seeing more performance art. I'm seeing more installation art, and I think that's really exciting. Not all art is something that you can buy and hang over your sofa, and that's a good thing. And maybe if you see a performance, it will inspire a painting. Another thing that I think I'm seeing that makes me really happy is at openings, a really high percentage of artists. I think the best way to improve your practice is to go see other people's work, get inspired by people not just in your community, but maybe from outside your community. That's something I'm seeing a little bit more of too. One of my favorite recurring shows around town is there's a bi-monthly contemporary work show at the Orlando Museum of Art. And there's usually a Florida connection, but it's not usually an Orlando artist. And I think that's a really good way to get inspired, is to maybe look a little further away. And read. Read magazines. Read newspapers.
I just really want to emphasize artists taking ownership of their own development and direction and exhibit. And in Atlanta, there was so much going on in the grassroots. There was a gallery owner that was very connected to the community who wanted more visibility of her space, and what she decided to do was this temporary happening in an empty neighborhood block in the warehouse district. And what she brought in was these pods, you know, where people store furniture. She brought in 3 pods that had temporary art exhibits, and on top of these pods there were dancers and performers playing music, and it was a one-night event with food trucks that happened to raise the visibility of the warehouse area. But it was up, it was down, and it had like 500 or 600 people attending. And it was done by a dealer working with artists that just wanted to do something that was very community-based to raise visibility. The other thing, another really super interesting thing in Atlanta, was an artist every year in her home, in her garage, she would do this amazing installation tableau. And it would be in her backyard, and she would invite people. People would have cocktails. I mean, people in the community would come, and at a certain time that evening, the garage door would open, and it was this incredible tableau that she would create. Photographs would be taken of this installation, and people would just marvel at it, and then they would go away, and it would be done. So what I'm saying is artists can take ownership of what they do. These pop-ups, like what Patrick has been doing, is really amazing here. And I think we as a cultural community need to think about ways in which we can express our creativity without waiting for institutions to do it for us.
That actually reminds me of something Mark Baratelli did for a while. I'm sad that he's not here tonight. He's someone who shows up, too. He did a U-Haul art series, and I think that you were part of it, Brendan? Yes, the mobile art gallery. He would just rent a U-Haul, choose an artist, and have a one-night show. Any of you can do that. Steal that idea, and let me know 3 weeks in advance if you're going to. I'm not kidding. Unfortunately, print is, a cruel mistress.
Terry?
And last weekend, I also went to an opening at the Sansus Gallery, which was someone's apartment.
Yes.
They took all the furniture out. You walked in through the patio, and there were bare walls and with art on them, and bare floor. And over by the kitchen, which is kind of curtained off, there's some food. So you're right. If you want to, one of my points is visibility. You need to get visibility, and you need to start with your friends and neighbors and coworkers and whoever, and invite them to come see your work, which you can put up in your apartment, or you can put up at work, or you can put up in a restaurant or a lobby, or there's a gazillion on your pages on your seat. There's a listing of some of the museums, galleries, alternative spaces where art has been. There's some in the room that aren't even on here, and I see lots of things I don't like on here that some intern put together for me. But there are phone numbers and addresses, so there's a whole bunch of places you could start with. So I just wanted to emphasize that as well.
If we missed any that you think definitely need to be on that list, just email us and let us know.
Well, I just want to also underscore that, we're going to be doing these artist project grants in February, and we'll need to get a list of everybody's here, make sure we send you the link it'll be a really simple project proposal. And the notion is about engaging artists with community, because I feel it's very important for the community to really appreciate the artists. And there are amazing collaborations and partnerships that can be done with artists. I want to raise the visibility of artists doing public art, doing community-based projects. I want you all to pay attention to that, because it'll be a pretty simple application form. And the notion is, what are the most interesting projects that artists want to do here that are going to be impactful, people are going to be paying attention to, and have meaning in our community? That's going to be, and that's money. So we're going to be granting project grants to artists to do something creative and compelling in community. So be thinking about that and talk to your friends about that.
I want to ask a question. How many of you here in the room have ever been to the White House on Sunday evening? Oh, that's good. Lots of great things going on there, artists coming together. Out of the kindness of his heart, Benoit reaches out to the arts community. So that's another great thing, and you've been reporting on it. So it continues to grow, and the artists report about it, and it continues to grow. And growing and achieving and selling. It's interesting. Our sales at the City Arts Factory have continued to rise month after month after month. Our CPA, who's a volunteer, we have mostly volunteer staff there, he said, what am I supposed to do with all this money that's coming in for the art sales? We don't even have a line item for it. But because of the continued reporting, continued connectivity with the artists, continued education, information, the whole showing up thing, and each one of us taking responsibility to share that information. If each one of us bring one person, 2 people, 3 people, 5 people. Frankie always gives a shout out on Facebook. He's started this whole thing on Facebook of shouting out to every single person that has contributed to the arts, from the musicians to the comedians to the spoken word to the visual artists to the performing artists, and asked each one of those artists to post something about their connectivity to the arts community. And it's growing and growing and growing. So as Flora Maria, you were saying, yes, we have all these opportunities, but to take responsibility, to put it out there, whether you send a letter or electronic or a telephone call or the word of mouth, or you collaborate with everyone else, you just do it.
Are you jumping ahead of Devin? Ladies first.
I just wanted to mention, to capstone this conversation, that the Art and History Museums has a lot of programs that you can participate in that are emphasizing collaboration. And we have a second Friday event called Culture Pop, and we love the idea of the art happening, and we have to be creative. One of our biggest event space is going under renovation, and so we'll have pods, and we'll have clotheslines, and we'll have a photo slam, and we'll be sending out calls to artists. So I encourage you to sign up for the email list for not just us, but other cultural organizations, because we do have those opportunities, and we do have them quite frequently. You know, in addition to the Culture Pop, we also have classes and opportunities for professional development. So they're not just abstractly out there; they're out there, and they're happening weekly. So, yeah, make sure that you. A way to engage with that is to make sure that you sign up for those communications.
So here's another issue, and in fact, it came out of the conversations with you all almost a year ago, was that in every community that I've worked early on, artists feel like people are not collecting their work. They're not buying locally, and it's like people are going to New York or LA or other major urban centers to invest in art because the local collecting community feels insecure about buying local artists. And one of the things that we did in Houston, which was really interesting, one, we started having gallery openings all at the same time. So there was a critical mass of people moving from one space to another, and there was a dialogue beginning about the work of local artists. But a couple started a business that would take potential collectors to different exhibits where the artists could talk about their work, and the artists would educate the local collecting base about their work. And eventually, and in a very short period of time, people who were buying art started buying local art because they felt a comfort level in investing locally. And I think we need to do that here, that we need to begin an education process, because there are quite a few collectors that live here, that buy significant art from around the country that may not be buying locally, but with some exposure, with some education, with some dialogue, would be willing to invest in the local artist space.
That's a great point. I'm going to let Terry say one thing, and then
I want to say one thing, and I'll just
Miss
go.
Donna,
You
all
can't
right.
stop me.
Okay.
I'm also an art consultant. I have an art consulting business, which I use a lot of local artists and put together the $1 million art collection at the View using many local artists and 5 or 6 other venues downtown. And people request, we don't want local art, we want a New York artist. We want a Los Angeles artist. We want another artist. And this is my quote. In New York, they're a local artist. In Los Angeles, they're a local artist. In Orlando, we are local artists. But New York collect Orlando because they don't want a local artist. Los Angeles collects Orlando because they don't want a local artist. So no matter what city an artist is from, they are indeed a local artist from that community. So choose the art that you love, choose the art that inspires you, choose the art from the artist that connects with you, because we are all from our community and from our city. Take it away, Terry.
Well, I just wanted to say on a more general level, you as an artist are a business and you have to be a salesperson. If you just want to do the art, then you got to get somebody else to be the salesman for your company. And if you're lucky enough to connect with a big art patron or somebody that will do that for you, and if you look at the people that have big names, usually somebody connected with them and they promoted them. But others, they promoted themselves. So you have to be a salesperson. And part of that we've talked about is connections. Connecting with your family is the first place to start, your friends. But a good place to connect is also with the business community. And how do you do that? Join the Chamber of Commerce. Get on a committee with a dozen other people to put on some event for the chamber or something like that. And then you're rubbing shoulders with business people who, when they get to know you and find out that you're an artist and you sell them on what great art you have, they'll want to put that in their office or their home or that kind of thing. So it's, I'm sorry, it's pretty hard to just be an artist. You are a business and you got to sell it. If you want to go full time, that's what you have to do.
Very Warhol of you.
You have to make contacts. You need to develop a database. When someone buys your artwork, make sure you keep connection with them, an email every month or 2 months. Send a little newsletter about what you're doing, so those people that have bought one thing.
And that's going to be in November. That's I think it's November, our chapter about how to brand and how to sell yourself, track your art, and we'll be talking about that. So I'm glad that you're talking about it now. But come on back in November, and we'll talk about it then. I just have 2 questions that we're going to open up to you, and we'll go one by one. I'd like to hear an answer from each, and then we'll open it up to everybody who's here so we can make sure that you guys are getting some burning questions that in the back of your brain out. So the first one, I would love to hear what is one thing that you absolutely love and are excited about with our local art scene. What is happening right now that makes you jump up with joy?
I'm going to subvert your question, sorry.
Okay.
It's not necessarily something that's happening right now, but one thing I really love about Orlando is there's a very low barrier to entry here. There may not be the institutional support that I came here from Chicago. I worked for the Department of Cultural Affairs there. It's a very large department. There were artist housing. There was, all kinds of projects. That may not be here, but it's also, we're all really approachable. Here we all are in this room. It's easy to get something going here, and that I think is my favorite thing about Orlando. Art.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to be excited about the organization that I work for. I'm really passionate about the things that we do, and I think by bringing in artists onto our campus to work there, to collaborate, is really one thing that's rewarding for me to see every single day. I look out my office window and I see somebody making a sketch, or I see somebody filming something, and that makes me excited to be in this community. And I think that there's a lot of room for us to create all those great happenings and to grow all the artists in this community.
I'm excited about the upcoming artist project grants that we've created, because I want to see what you all come up with. And I want to engage artists with community, and I want community to recognize the talent that is here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes from these project grants. I think that's wide open territory.
I'm excited about everything. And I'm excited that we have so many extremely talented, inspirational, amazing, accomplished, emerging. We have art from all walks of life and every type of art. Every type of art, every genre of art. I believe Orlando continues to be the city of the world. People come here from all over the world. We have things going on. We have things happening. all of our new venues are created. The new Performing Arts Center, that will raise the bar on arts. Performing arts, visual arts, more artists, more talking about arts, more reporting. Controversial, yes. Great, yes. Challenging, yes. So many things, but Orlando is a great place to be, and every single person matters. And it's your choice, and it's up to you and up to us. And we have a great sense of collaboration here through all of us. And the great thing is, we want our community to thrive, and it is, and it will continue to. So I'm extremely excited about that.
Personally, what excites me about our visual arts scene locally are the pop-up and non-traditional kinds of things like the Corridor Project, the Creative City Project, when there's art in unexpected places that surprise people and are creative without big budgets, like Nathan's stick people made out of cardboard tubes that I had on our lawn at the Orange County Administration for a little bit. That kind of stuff I really like. On a traditional basis, I really love the exhibition we have right now in the Orange County Administration Center, Board of County Commission Chambers, if you haven't seen it. It's called Portraits of Black America, and it's 5-foot by 5-foot portraits of great characters by local artists. And so I'd encourage you to stop down sometime and see those.
One more. In November, the early couple weeks in November, you will start, well, actually in September, you will start to see iconic sculptures going up around the city of Orlando. An organization called See Art Orlando, a group with a vision that met with the city, and Mayor Dyer wanted to have an iconic art collection. Great cities have statues and sculpture around them, so you will see the installation of 8 iconic sculptures around the city of Orlando, a lot around Lake Eola. There will be a public celebration of the arts, a permanent collection, not a temporary one that will move or go somewhere else. And phase 1, $2.5 million was raised privately by going person to person, business to business. And so the city will assist us, but the money was raised privately through a group that said, we want to do this and we want to support it. And it's pretty amazing. In just a little bit over a year, you're going to start seeing this. You can see some of the fencing and stuff around Orlando. It's starting to happen. 165 call. Well, we sent out thousands of call to artists. 165 came from all over the world, local, national, international. So with the sponsors, they choose their artists. They choose the contemporary art. So it's going to be pretty cool.
There's one just around the corner, too. If you're walking this way, you'll be able to see it right in front of the Lake Eola Farmers Market. My final question to put forth is, since this is an introduction to the arts and also a part of the first part of our installment of the Artist Survival Guide, is there one pearl of wisdom, one point of advice that you want to put out there right now? Take this opportunity to get it out there to Central Florida artists so they can be better at what they do and survive. We can again start with Jessica. Put you right on the spot.
I mean, this is purely in terms of getting coverage. Just, it's never too early. Well, it is too early. Don't tell me 6 months before, but don't tell me 6 days before either. I think getting familiar with the people, if you want something from someone, get familiar with what they do. Learn what Flora Maria does. Learn what Terry does, and Donna and Devin, and what I do. And, what we need in order to give you what you need, I think, is the best way.
Well, I'm actually going to steal my answer from 2 people, one who's in the room and one who's not. Is everyone familiar with Andrew Spear? He does a lot of murals in town, and he posts... He posts daily, multiple times on his social media, and one of his big things is to sketch every day. And he says that you have to practice every day so that you can be better. And I think the other message that he has that's really important is that you have to be professional. When you approach someone, have a portfolio ready. Show your best work, crop your images, have JPEGs ready for the media, for a flyer. Make sure that all of your ducks are in a row because it really is a business and you have to take the care with all the pieces of that business. And the other piece is actually something that Hanson Mulford said at another museum panel that I was at. And he said one of the things that curators base their decision on what artists to show is what kind of awards that you earn and places you apply for grant funding. And so I think it's really important to apply in those places, even when you think, gosh, this is a really long application, I don't want to write an artist statement, that you have to invest the time in those things because that makes you better.
I think you have to approach your career as an artist as recognizing that you are starting a business, and you have to think of yourself as a business. And you have to learn to be professional, keep the books, know how to market yourself, know how to create images that look consistent and strong, and present yourself in a very, very professional way to those gallery dealers that are going to represent you. It is all about the business of making art. And on top of that, you have to be really, really, really good at what you do because there are a million artists out there. And what's going to make you stand out is the quality of your work first, and then secondly, how you present yourself as a business to other people that you're going to be working with.
I'm a self-taught artist. My whole life I was going to school to learn how to be an artist. I had many careers, but my whole life I was going to school to learn how to be an artist. And I met Andy Warhol in the 70s, and he asked me one question: "Are you an artist? Answer my question. Are you an artist?" I said yes, and he said, "Then be one. Be the artist." So that's part of it too, is being the artist. And reach out for help and ask and continue to practice. It's like anything else. You want to be better, you practice. But do not be afraid. If you can let fear go and appreciate yourself and appreciate your art, there's so many opportunities for submittal shows, and you can submit your art. There's, go on orlandoslice.com. We have 4,000 artists on there. Go on the artist registry and find out about opportunities. The opportunities are endless, but unless you take the initiative to find out what's best for you and learning how to do your business, learning how to submit and what the deadlines are and what the opportunities are, and be professional about how you submit it. But please don't be afraid to show your work. And I'm going to tell this really quick story. One of my first art shows, and I was so excited to be showing with these artists, and I was so confident about my work, and I delivered it to the gallery, and there were 4 other artists. And as I looked at the quality of their art and I looked at my art, I thought, what in the shit am I doing here? And as the art was hung and the show was put together and the collectors came in and the patrons came in and everyone appreciated every style, every artist's work, I said to myself, do not ever compare yourself to another artist. Love and appreciate your work, understand and appreciate your talent, and just continuing to develop and grow and be the amazing artist that you are.
Besides practicing your skill, which I think is very important, I would say work at having something to say. And that, there's 3 points to that, I think. One is interact with your community, not just your artist community, but the community around. What are people thinking? What are issues? What makes people go, ah, or laugh, or and that this means you have to. It's about communication. whether it's an abstract or whatever, I'm not saying you have to have a message. I'm saying you need to be able to communicate, to connect with people, and people with money, and they're not necessarily artists. So you got to not just be around artists. You do need to be around artists to see what they're saying to the community, and looking at their work and seeing what their techniques are. And then so one is connect with your community, two is see other people's work, and the third is reflect, be quiet, have time to absorb those connections you're making with the community and see what your inner self has to say about that. If you're just out doing all the time, you're probably not going to really be very impactful in your communication with what you're doing.
I want to add one more thing to Terry's comments. Support each other. Support each other. Be generous of spirit. It's tough to be an artist. Be part of the community and help each other, communicate with each other, and promote each other. And it really is like good karma. You promote another artist, it always comes back around. So really support each other because you need each other. And that's important about being an artistic family, that we are a community and we need to, it's like if we do good things for others, good things will come back to us. So support your peers, support the arts, support each other.
I totally agree, and I want to say that isn't just, everything, you're wonderful, everything's great. That's a superficial level of support. Find some people that you know, love, and respect you that can also challenge you. We don't need to have... You probably don't need to have public criticism to improve your art, like in a paper, that kind of thing. That's really about publicity. What you need is a core group of people that you trust, you know they love you, they know you love your work, but can say, what are you doing here? Or why don't you do something along, or that can push you on. Many great artists you'll find had that circle that challenged them. So you want support, but you want challenging support as well. Not just, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
I love you.
Love Ambassador. Thank you, everybody. So that's the end of my questions. Does anybody have a burning question out there in the audience? And if you do, I'm going to ask you to come up and speak into the microphone so we can get it on tape. Anybody out in the audience have a question, my friend?
If you're going to approach a gallery to have your work put up, what do you say? What do you come prepared with? I do this for my husband, who's an artist, because he is not comfortable talking very much, and he's dyslexic. So I do it for him, and I'm not sure what to say sometimes.
First, it's hard if you do it for him because the dealer is going to want to talk to the artist. One, you have to look at a gallery and see if your work is a good fit for that gallery. Are you doing work that they're interested in, that they're showing and they're supportive of? I mean, is your style a fit for that gallery? And then you come to the openings, get to know the owner of the gallery, the dealer, begin to develop a relationship with that person and invite them to come to your studio, to do a studio visit. If you want to come and show the person your work, you need to make an appointment. You just don't show up with 40 million pieces. Bring a series of works or images that are consistent. So you're not showing them you can do 40 different styles. You have to be very consistent. And really you need to know the dealer. You need to have some type of relationship with them and make sure that your work is a fit with the kind of thing that they're interested in showing. And talk to other artists also who are represented by that gallery and learn more about what's the dealer like, what's the relationship like, are you happy there, is this a place that you want to have a relationship with and have some kind of contract with. So it's an ongoing evolution and relationship and really learning about each other. It's not an instant, come and represent me and we're done.
So it's kind of like development. You don't go to a rich person and say, hey, will you give me money? Right. You develop a relationship with them. So you go and you talk about, oh, there's a nice show you had, or I love what you supported.
Just
or,
like any
so
funder,
develop
does
relationship.
my proposal or the project that I want to do fit that funder's interest? And so it's really important to know the galleries, to know what they're showing, if your work is a fit, and then begin to build a relationship with the owner of the gallery and slowly introduce yourself to them.
And please do not show up on the night of some other person's event with your portfolio and say, hey, I'm an artist and could I show my work here, and I'd like to show you my work. It is a professional courtesy. There is a process. There is a timeline. There are growing things. And research the gallery. Also, you must be very careful and understanding the history of a gallery. Has it been in business for a while? What kind of contract do they have? There's a publication called The Artist Professional, and I meant to bring it tonight, and I did not. It's a publication, hard copy publication. I'm sure they have an online version, but it gives you lots of helpful hints and information about how to do that. But please don't show up on the night of an event. Show up, introduce yourself to the gallery, make an appointment, and really a good way is through these submission shows, because lots of gallery owners want to see art that they can sell. They are in business for selling art. It helps them. It helps the artist. And finding the right fit. That's very important.
Patrick, you leaped up when he asked that question. I'm sure you have something to say about that.
Into the microphone, Pat.
I felt like when somebody comes up to you on opening night or there's another show and they want to show you, that's kind of like a good way to for me to just not want to ever talk to you again. If you just want to get, because that's the worst kind of way.
You want to end it right there.
Yeah, because and that's and it's madness, because last third Thursday I had 5 people come up to me and just follow me around, and I'm trying to explain what somebody else is doing, and I said, there's another show going on. It's like going to a restaurant and bringing your own food, and just saying, here, like, you think this is good? Check out what I've made. But it really is annoying. But most websites, most people have websites with also submission guidelines on it, which we're working on. So, but I think that another thing is building up sort of an awareness, like Jessica, when you said read, but really when you do that, really become aware when you're looking at things that you're really looking at the space and really looking at what they are, and really paying attention and not going. It's not just a random thing. And if somebody doesn't want to put up your work, that doesn't mean they think you're not talented. It might mean it just doesn't work with what they're doing. And I know a lot of people take things personally. Everybody probably takes things personally, but just because you say, yeah, yeah. Hanson, you're not saying anything on this. I notice you're very quiet on this.
Well, part of lessons that all sales people have to learn is that you ask 27 times before you get a yes. Well, so no is, like someone said.
One
no
thing I was thinking about when you said about, you'd have to sell your work, but you also don't want to become like just a hustler. You want to become, like you said, you want to have a portfolio. You want to have, like what Andrew said, you have to have everything together. You don't want to come in, like somebody emailed me and said, would you like to see my work? I mostly work in black and white. Is this somebody trying to make me laugh or what? I just thought, what is this? I don't know what that means. But there's nothing else. I don't know what that means. And you have to be clear, there has to be some sort of clarity.
Let me clarify. I'm not talking about being a used car salesman and being sleazy, but a good salesperson develops relationships, but knows why this would be the right fit for that person, and they can help you do that. And they also are developing opportunities for that person to know more about the product and why they would like that product.
Anybody else in the audience have a question for these superheroes up on the stage?
So one quick simple question is, for the Sea Art Orlando Phase 2, is there a timeline in place already?
Not yet.
Okay.
We got to get this one installed and up and completed and celebrated, and then we'll go on to the
Fantastic.
next phase two.
And then this is just a curiosity question, something I've always been curious about that is somewhat related to public art and is very related to Orlando. What is the story of the little Statue of Liberty on the way to Ivanhoe Village?
The Boy Scouts put that there. And it was made from a lot of melted pennies, I believe.
No, but I thought it, okay, now this is where, where it's interesting, because I thought it was actually a gift from France to Orlando, that it was a replica. Well, see, we need to research.
Okay.
We need to research.
Scotty Campbell, the Main Street director for Ivanhoe Village, is here, and Terry's right. Donna, we love you, but you're wrong.
Well, so that's an interesting question.
Right.
How did the, Statue of Liberty? Is it statue? I'm thinking the Eiffel Tower. I'm confused at the moment. An artist confused me.
No, that's a reasonable story to have about it. It was the same.
So so that's very interesting.
And then I just have one thing to share as a visual artist who has gone through various professional development programs. There's a national organization called Creative Capital Foundation that you should know about as an artist if you don't know about it. And they actually run lots of workshops around Florida. And I've taken their programs and I highly recommend them. And they also run webinars these days for $25 each. It's like a 2-hour webinar about the kinds of things that we're talking about and that you guys will be talking about in this program. So if you're hungry for more than you can get once a month here, definitely check them out.
Thanks, Nathan. Anybody else? Oh, Mr. Purple.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm a little nervous.
Hi, Eric.
Hi. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm really excited to meet and to hear all you talk about the excitement going on in Orlando, from Teresa, for I like the positive things you say about how Orlando is approachable and there's a low barrier, and how you like the pop-up things that aren't occurring abstractly. They really are occurring here in Orlando, and I'm finding that out as a new student at UCF. And the question I have for you, Donna, is you talked about sea art and also about how important that Andy Warhol quote was to you. How did that translate into the people they chose? Do people come to Orlando to see local artists? Are the sculptures going to be local artists, or are they going to be artists, like you said, you had from around the world and from around the nation?
Well, that's very interesting. The community of Orlando is a worldwide community, and we want to support the arts. So the call to artists went out locally, nationally, and internationally. So we got several local artists applying, we got many national artists applying, and we got several international artists applying. So as different members of the panel have said, you must meet a criteria. Are you a public professional artist that creates art that can withstand the weather, can withstand the elements, that can be installed, that can last for years, that has low maintenance? There's a criteria that you have to meet. So right away, some of that is narrowed down. You submit designs of what your artwork is. When you're making a call for contemporary art and someone submits a very conservative landscape sculpture, it's not a contemporary, iconic piece of art. So that narrows down that process. Now you have people that are committing anywhere from $75,000 up to $250,000 to sponsor their location of art, so they have feedback into the process as well. So now it just becomes about the art. So we have a local artist, we have several national artists, and we have an international artist. So we have a broad spectrum of artists that will create these sculptures that will be exhibited in Orlando, that will also bring visitors, locals, community together to view, discuss, be controversial, be in favor of, but bring community together to experience that emotion, evoke that emotion of what art creates. So,
Did that answer your question? Terry?
Just a comment about public art and our being a crossroads of the world. We certainly want to have the best in the world. When our library is built, we didn't just choose local artists, local authors for the books, but we wanted to have Shakespeare, even though he's, that's a good book to have in the library. So I hope any public art program in Central Florida here will look to have the best in the world. And it's great if you're local and you have a better chance to meet the financial guidelines if you're not shipping something from Zimbabwe. So local artists always have a leg up in a number of ways. One, because financially they're more likely to be able to provide more for the amount of money that's available. Two, they understand the local, they've met the community, they know how to say something that speaks to the community. So local artists always have that kind of thing. But would we want to be a community where, like, I got chosen because we're only doing the best of the local? Or I got chosen because we've got the best in the world? I mean, I would want to be chosen because I'm the best in the world.
Okay, I also want to throw out the idea of temporary public art because I think I've seen that in a lot of places that I've lived where artists kind of just do their own thing. In Texas, we had artists doing like Texas tornadoes under an underpass. And what they did was they came to the municipal authority and got permission to, in Houston, there was like a temporary public art ordinance. So you could put up a piece of public art for 6 months in a public space. And the artists took it upon themselves to create these large-scale temporary pieces of public art that were really amazing. Some of them were like dinosaurs under the underpass or a Texas tornado on the side of the road. And those kinds of things are really, really interesting for a community to create these dynamic installations that are up for a period of time and then they go away. So it doesn't have to be a forever thing. It can be a temporary, really iconic piece that could engender a ton of conversation and observation and writing. So I would encourage you all to think about that as well.
I think we have time for one more question from the audience. And Kim, you had your arm up.
She has a question.
Right?
The little lady in the back.
Show off your pretty dress.
Hello. I am not an artist, and I'm kind of lucky enough to be in this sort of serendipitously and getting to meet and learn more about the art community and what's available. Sorry. I don't like microphone. And I guess my question is, it's all sort of been talked about is that there's local collectors who buy far away, and we have this worldwide community coming to Orlando. Maybe this is a question for Dad and for Terry. Donna, sorry. Dad is she is a dad. But is there anything in place that allows those two to overlap and marry? Is there something? My background is coming from trade show management, and there's millions and millions of people cloistered out at hotels where the wives are bored out of their brains. Put them in a bus and bring them down here. Are there things that are available to that? And then also, on the other side, for us locals, are there anything other than I know some of the stuff Pat's doing that are going to start bringing our educational levels up to meet the artists that are here? Because so much of it, the pop-up art, I mean, Pat says, I can't tell you how many times I was like, that's art? I'm like, really? And he's like, yes, really. So we are dumb. Some of us are uneducated Central Floridians. Are there things that can be, I'm just rambling.
That was a great question.
There's
great
some
questions.
art trade shows, Art Basel Art Trade Show, Art Basel, Chicago Pier Art Fest. You know, it's like where galleries set up booths to showcase the work of their artists. There's no reason why there cannot be a whole education process of collectors about local artists here. And again, I mean, there are a million opportunities, but it's all about information, education, awareness, and visibility of the local artists.
The educational process never stops. We have a program with Visit Orlando, and we bring their staff to downtown. We bring them to expose all of the art things that are going on. So when conventions, trade shows, other events are taking place at the Disney properties, at all of the iDrive properties, they're always looking for educational or art things while the people attending the seminars, like the spouses and the other people, are coming. It's a lot relationship-based promoting. We actually had oh my gosh, from Saudi Arabia, a prince from Saudi Arabia who visited Orlando. He happened to be friends with someone at the Downtown Arts District. He called us at the Downtown Arts District, said, could you arrange a tour for the Prince of Saudi Arabia to downtown? It was in Halloween time. We had the Monster Factory and all these Frankenstein busts. Just so happens he collects Frankenstein art. It just so happened. I mean, it's just sometimes the way things, but if someone didn't tell someone, they brought him to downtown. We were busy, you know, there's never enough time, but you take time. So we took him on a tour of all of Orlando. He bought $28,000 worth of art. There was a big showcase going on at the View with designers, interior designers, architectural designers, so also forms of art. So we took him to look at that installation and made an agreement with the real estate people that said if he were to buy a property, that part of that money would come back to the arts. So once again, it's about that education. And so you keep putting that word out. You keep inviting them in. Terry has done a number of programs with art educators from around the country that come. We did a program in the Downtown Arts with the National League of Cities. We did with the Downtown Development Authorities from all over the United States. We took them on tours of downtown and the arts programs. There was a convention that came of all of the arena managers, venue managers from all over the United States and Europe. There were over 250 of them. But you have to ask the question, how can we participate? How can we have an event? How can we attract the sponsors? How can we make this happen? They came. I was just in New Orleans at this same convention, which was on a larger scale. They still talk about Orlando. They bought art. They purchased art. They want to come back and visit art. Several people have purchased homes in Orlando from the spinoff of arts and culture. So you just can't stop. You just have to keep educating.
Well, here's another thing that we talked about at the conversations was maybe a little fundraiser that some visual arts group could do that would take people to open studios. And that could be collectors, people just interested in local art, people who might not have bought art but who would be interested with good guidance, but to do a series of visits to open studios and have that happen maybe every quarter where you could have an organized open studio visit and then have the artists talk about their work and bring people interested. That's a great education process. It's a great way for people to buy art.
Let's do that. Let's do it. Let's do it. Done.
Do it.
We need to do it. We can do it. Terry, you have one thing to say, and then
I've been on several of those in Orlando. The Orlando Museum of Art has put them together. Different organizations have, but they need to continue.
all right. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out and sharing your pearls of wisdom with us. Jessica, Devin, Flora, Maria, Donna, Terry, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming. That was the first of 12 panels that we'll be having, 12 chapters in our actual physical Artist Survival Guide. Please follow along on urbanrethink.com or on our Facebook page to see what is coming up next. The other chapters will be more hands-on lessons on how to be better. And this was our introduction to the arts in Central Florida. So thank you so much, and mingle and talk to all of your neighbors. I'm sure everybody has lessons to share.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
For putting it together. Yes. If it wasn't for you putting it together, we wouldn't be here.
Urban Rethink.
Urban Rethink.